Hello, America Reports with John Roberts and Sandra Smith. I was watching Outnumbered right before that, and they had the topic about the national anthem and or rising for the flag or not. And see, and someone mentioned about how this topic has been debated and to death by everybody. It's tired out, but everyone left out exceptions and exception nature. Since founding, there are revelations tied to short words that our founding parents left us to speak for themselves. Our founders who had to counter extort the rest of the founders. For example, so it is evidence that and how they had fake narrative, they had to hide their actual motivations, nature's needs and interests relative to, we know, besides how human. Everyone was playing extra other systems other than how we are see the human science and it's in nature's ties to use and why we are valued, for example. So when you guys are making treatments about what they called enhanced enhanced uh, enhanced statutes or treatments or whatever they use the word enhanced though. So you have to understand how predicate criminal insidiousness was propagated while they were tactically denaturing Native Americans' ground, while they were had been forced from the nature relevant to be to explain the revelations revealed by the ancient by the native history that had not been criminally foreign influenced, that which had complete possession of the countries of the identities of the countries that were involved with the possession of the Native American landscape, even where they weren't the possession of it. Their systems are being all tactically ulterior than nature's system. So it made people need to get a way to cause positive value nature progressions other than using nature's system. So it needed people to start using exceptions and exception nature and values, words like values, identity, names, other than nature's system, with sequence shifts valued, for example. So they wanted to find another way to treat how a guy just got killed so easily. One of the reporters on America Reports with John Roberts and Sandra Smith said it was just about a necklace and whatever they took from him. But in other words, this is an identity of the ground location method that had slavery, witch trials, laws about what people could say, therefore convict. And when people are making opinions slash convictions, they're making identity treatments. They're making positive and negative treatments. And so a criminal insidiousness nature makes positive treatments that are also criminal insidiousness. So where, for example, this is also relevant to where and how you words like criminals, opinions of people A through Z, the opinions of the police were criminally foreign influence too. They're victims but as victim predators, trying to react to the real causes of criminal insidiousness nature, recorded blaming on other things, others ourselves, valuing having been blamed on other things, others ourselves. Some of the real causes. Between campuses, they are replacing the short words and the revelations about what was about that come from that nature that they never defended. If kids' natures aren't defended on their campus, it's not because of if it's because there's other kids involved. It's not because of other kids involved. Other kids wouldn't be involved if adults weren't involved. even if their parents are involved too. It shows this is, in other words, they're looking for someone to blame as reading when they're trying to speak for the law. That's when it's too late. Or they're pretending it's too late because they've been needing to hide lie progressions more and more to identity ground locations, needed to hide their actually recorded natures, needed to hide the actually recorded nature of the law. So referring to it as enhanced prosecutions. So with the transition from the Organized Crime Control Act to RICO, the Racketeering Influenced and Corrupt Organization Act, and then with treatments by the Patriot Act, former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, former standing chairperson on Racketeering Influence and Corrupt Organization Act. He was confessed, demonstrated, confirmed roles with wire crimes with Wethersfield Police, other police departments, falsified police reports roles with them, and with abuse, and with his co-defendants and their family members involved with juxtaposed abuses of girls of each age and nature, and women, including interbranch, including their roles as women reacting by their roles with a principal child abuser from their positions and with their roles with the schools. Has nothing to do. I mean, there are uses by the juxtaposed natures of organized crime and of worse than war crimes, for example, relevant to what? The revelations regarding people's opinions and or slash convictions regarding the revelations with black and white treatments regarding the law. A breaching method put that there. Say other, your logic's going to show you self-value. Anyone, I mean, not you guys, anyone, that their logic going to show them self-valuing. Criminally foreign influenced databases, relationships, for example, having been involved with the acceptations of the values of American history, the other histories as told. Our founding parents did not have free speech and had other free speech force pretended legitimate, their own, forced to be their own or they wouldn't exist. Just like it's slavery, sickly distinctly against our founding parents, sickly distinctly against Native Americans A through Z. Further, how they're grouped. That would be not naturally. How we are not grouped naturally, we can't help but being the rest, anywhere the species body's volume is. Its identity has a relationship here in demonstration of it. The volume we share that is positive or negative to itself. But there is also it's as a trinity. So you know how truth can be used for a lie. So in other words, there is an integrity of truth. That is the system perfect value progression that is native pure. That came since before sciences became remembered, only remembered criminally foreign influence and defended that way, self-valued that way, in defenses of some people as people self too, but blaming other things others themselves the whole time. So it's not with honesty, for example, when they pick out the names of leaders that were involved in the wars of the past, and where they pick out the sacrifices of the soldiers and the people hurt and of the innocent people, which soldiers are too, just like the kids who do bad things from, every area sickly distinctly because they're every area is sickly distinctly in a trap that has ground locations involved, method /S. And then to keep out sickly non-distinctly, not only not from being discerned, but keeping that self-value by having propagated, having and engineered other ulterior from its own motivations, natures, needs, interests to hide the same final act of progressive lies that the breaching method new nature would demonstrate needed to be hid by anyone trying to speak for the nature of the law. And we have to speak for the nature of the law. How are you going to speak up against bad things with the law? Crazy laws. If that's against the law too. You see what I'm saying? And or if they're pretending, you can, but they have a rat trap where they're going to torture you, and they're going to fabricate more audio and video at the interbranch locations, which they've been doing since founding. Criminally foreign influence readings of statutes, self-valued having been more and more because they are being more and more. They are differentially criminally foreign influenced. The locations, areas, and states of every spot of the human body of volume. And it knew that people would have to counter that as factory nature, that they knew, and as identities of the ground, identities under like countries that would have to blame other things, others, and or themselves for the real cause of negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures when responding to them. It's that it wasn't for money. The people killed the other people. In other words, even if it was for the people to get that sick with the money and the weapons and things like that, about petty things like that. It's based on what I caught you guys doing with the child campuses. Everyone since founding, you guys are preventing demonstration of where and how the overt criminal enterprises, private criminal enterprises, transnational criminal enterprises, countries A through Z as archetypal criminal enterprises, and then further how grouped, and then further how altogether, pretending they can speak for positive or negative simultaneously. As victims, certain kind of victim, everyone who, in collusion with the overt criminal enterprises and private ones, including the branches of government, how kept needing to hide the same sequence, yet finite, progressive lies and illusions, identity theft, fraud, slander rolls with them, kept recorded. How they use truth to lie regarding the differences between a DA or AG, or they have a complete remote possession of Washington, D.C. and World Trade Center syntax ties to our campuses of each age and nature simultaneously, database relationships simultaneously, criminally foreign influence private too, and just that insidiousness shared by opinions A through Z, having had replaced the short words and revelations that we were obligated to have defended at our campuses. Instead, you have medical communities and ones with badges, and judicial communities and ones with badges, and regular police, and the private police of the campuses, all types of jobs, the counselors and things like that, and then with private connections to themselves, kept offensively, preemptively showing needs to hide lie progressions, to hide actually recorded value uses of ground locations and responses in relationship to the needs for investigating needs for police. This breaching method knew we would have to rely upon what was criminally foreign influence, and they knew they would have to rely upon us to speak for the police. Because people have, in other words, and exceptions, the exception nature increasingly has styles that everyone's preventing demonstration of it. In other words, they have criminally foreign influence premises treatments, fact treatment nature qualities, the overt criminal enterprises, and the police ones, and the other branches of government individually grouped together. They have methods of pretending other relative to nature, relative to when we make fact treatments. They have a fact treatment nature there. They can't afford to discern because it's their criminal insidiousness, and it has been used. So they measure and maintain people distinctly from how our own and how they're on there. The people that fight with each other. We start trying to have people admit they didn't have integrity here. Hundreds of countries are shared here and there. That hurts us. They say, "Oh, look, well, you didn't have integrity to these people." They don't have integrity though, because through those other countries, they kept them criminally foreign influence, roles with a method of identity theft, fraud, slander against everyone, specifically to keep a method of slander, specifically to keep where and how we are valued as the as a hyper simultaneously the same exact way, not distinctly. Where and how it has an identity of relationship to itself as the perfect value progression system, because the value of that also increases. All three of those things increase simultaneously. And see, but that's nature as value / value as nature. Simultaneously, distinctly, non distinctly, and simultaneously, where and how it is making more and more forever nature. It is in demonstration of it, how it makes more of itself. Forever nature that is positive unto itself here, or it is forced from here, where more temporary positive can also make more temporary positive that is also lasting positive unto and as itself. Vaccines, it's in it itself is better still. While and more fun, and while as the value of Santa's elf or elves, plural, altogether. So, in other words, for example, when they have treatments of there are police forms that deal with the NFL and with the teams individually grouped and together. And there are police forms of retired and standing, interbranch, and all exceptions tied to them, including military, of Fox News. They've been handing you misinformation. They have roles with wire crimes that are simultaneously sequence shift roles with overt criminal enterprises and private ones, leading up to the World Trade Center attack in that context and since. Oh, so I wanted to use Mike Pence's name. Can't even do that anymore because you guys are sick. Not, and when it becomes out manifest, everyone's hiding how everyone's measured and maintained too. They're worse than criminal competence. Reacted and was capable of reacting. All those resources they had all that time. They don't have a button to press when the net comes up. It's always just kill. Someone gets killed too, but then the stories stay rat trap. Wanting and needing to be called rat trap. No one knows why, but that's used remotely too. Your complete possession of your syntax nature regarding the tactically denatured identity of the ground, locations, and our means by it that our founding parents wanted to have explained had been employed with the torture of and for the torture of their fact chibi nature, where and how to make positive value nature progressions. Everyone had to entertain systems not only tactically other than native pure, but with that which is nature as that which is native pure, demonstrating it. The ancients that revealed the republic for which we stand in the campus system, they had a method of, they have a quality of fact sheet nature too, that knew how to cause evolution's fruits and gifts, means out of nowhere. In other words, and since it was criminally re-engineered, people couldn't entertain roles with it and afford the revelations by the or of the short words regarding opinions / convictions. So offensively, our voices are pretended. Weathersfield Police has been attaching little kids to fake communications with their officers in the Weathersfield Police Department. Doctors have been doing that tied to them. and no one's watching what's in their databases. They've been doing it with people outside of their courts too, and outside of the police department too. They're involved with an identity theft / fraud method / slander method. That's one of the things it is sickly distinctly. Suburbs, urban, and rural. In all exceptions and exception nature. Like, you know, every place is tactically denatured, even the best left nature. That's why it keeps going downhill. Is why species keep going extinct. The only way you can get nature to come back again, you have to enable its identity of relationship to itself. It wanted and needed us to discern, gave us the elements to discern, partially invisible but still discernible, where, and how really all the different types of seeds had come from. You know, now all the ground, the earth, every year, everybody mows their lawns across the globe, sends the stuff away. Oh, then put something to make it green more. Under the earth, are there less worms, less worms. The quality of the soil changes, less nutrients. The food cycle changes. When the rain comes, the worms come out, they walk into puddles, they walk into ponds. Even when the rain doesn't come, sometimes they just walk into the pond. Then they change the soils, ponds go denatured. They took out in phases. They tactically denatured, even made self-value roles. The people who hate it, like the environmentalist people who like to vision, well, I'm a real and support the environment. Because what everyone's doing is supporting criminalization's natures of positive treatments and of negative treatments, simultaneously of identity grounds, identity of relationship to itself treatments. And so, real or made up, the story about the guy being shot who just had become a cop, a police officer in California, LA. And the houses look just like the houses in that movie Friday. Or the Friday after next with by Ice Cube. And to discern what I'm talking about relative to those houses, the revelation, there are standing hyper-evidential revelations regarding American history that can be discerned there. American history begins at Wethersfield. One of the ways it begins relative to that breaching method against people A through Z. And then further, how as while it was bringing out the difference of Native Americans that way and of natives of other country, it brought out their difference to measure and maintain how it brought it out, and as nature demonstrating how it brings it out, blamed on other things other than around selves. The more nature gets denatured, the more people are demonstrating that they can't speak for the Constitution unabridged. Therefore, the Native Americans' value, let alone their religion and the Constitution unabridged. So, the Wethersfield police also replaced with the other agencies. The FBI has been replacing audio and video with fabricated audio and video transcripts no one's been watching. Since everyone was kids, they have the military criminally foreign influence this way, all along the route from Old Wethersfield, from Church Street and Old Wethersfield, and the corner of Main Street and Church Street further. And then all along from there to Wells, all from the way on there to Wells Road and straight through Wethersfield to New Britain, through Newington and into New Britain, and then on off Central Connecticut State University, Paul Manafort Drive. These are people involved with the intelligence community. And we'll go back to Wethersfield on Main Street there, right around the corner touching the corner of Church Street. That's and a few houses in there is where George Washington had to come and leave entrenched slavery north and south. But he had to they had roles with the plan to counter extort people and to force them to the roles with the phenomenon that forced incomplete identities to be unity and or to fight with each other until they would discern and allowed to be discerned through the breaching method, the short words our founding parents left us to speak about regarding the Civil War. Civil War can't be told without understanding this, how they had to force the North and South to fight each other, not about slavery. And they forced each other to use that truth as a lie, so they wouldn't be able to speak about the nature of the law. So that would be discerned by ourselves in time, or they did the best they could. The breaching that had been sustained was complete possession of people's positive and negative treatments, identity treatments. So when you guys use the words like criminals, you're leaving out where and how the people have been using immunities from prosecutions to hide exceptions and hide exception nature, like their roles every day, fabricating audio and video each more and more, pretending not to realize. Also, while simultaneously delusions rot interstates, of each new country too. Know how they are all, each country has states of itself, even if they don't have states formally the way we do. This is about the order of the mind, prevented offensively too, for the delusions and the juxtaposed natures of criminality associated with the mental health care, associated with pseudo justice, pretended other offensively, pretending exception, pretending they don't realize the relevance of exceptions and of exception nature. Increasingly, all these styles of logic, forcing people to speak through groups and as groups, and increasingly doing that, and only haven't been done. They're attaching everyone to fake words in life and on campuses, and they have live progressions from the identity thefts and frauds roles with that. There are men and women that plotted to put a person that came into my house when I was in fourth grade in a summer school class of me with a Mr. Neville, and with a Joe DeMauro, who's one of the police involved. Somebody used his names, and with a girl in that class, and they involved her abuses of her with a whole bunch of different boyfriends she had too, but also the men and women involved with it, and her brothers and family members made to self-value roles, because their roles with that at the corner of Church Street and Main Street in Old Wethersfield, right around the corner from the witch trial place in Wethersfield, Connecticut, right where George Washington had to leave slavery entrenched north and south, had to secure means to win the last battle of the Revolutionary War, right here in Wethersfield, right before the last battle of the Revolutionary War. Meanwhile, they measure and maintain when witch trials come up. One, they measure that and how they keep out simultaneously how slavery laws were standing are a simultaneous value with that. It shows the breaching method. Simultaneously, they leave out, I forgot my train of thought, but they leave out the juxtaposed physical delusions too. So that's why they prevent writing. Interbranch uses methods switching names and forging names, pretending to be against racism and prejudice, because of their crime roles at locations planting evidences, including fact should be nature oriented, and slanders. It's an identity theft, fraud, slander method against every single person, strictly, distinctly, but also has you all roles, and or they just steal your identity, touch you to fake words, and worse. So please follow mandated law. Fox News. There are proofs that they might have, they might be setting up Judge Napolitano for their sequence shifts and roles with a principal child abuser that Fox News self-valued then and is increasingly self-valuing roles with, hiding as a response from me, and simultaneously with physical delusions, and simultaneously with slanders increasingly, and their roles with methods of stacking names, and then pretending others are making complaints about others. You guys brought your names up involved with this. The sequence shifts are increasingly relevant because these are people involved with the World Trade Center in Washington, D.C., and with the former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, in his defendant capacities, and with his co-defendants, um, John LeConte, Dominic Lapriata, and Dominic Lapriata's neighbors involved with federal crimes of kids I went to school with, and his John LeConte's daughter is involved with the males and females and doctors involved with sexual and other drugs and medical and judicial abuses and executive abuses even and intercampuses abuses of the girl they put in my middle school class and uses of that for her roles again with federal crimes against me and others of juxtaposed natures, and the identity thefts and frauds and slanders with various natures of courts involved with it, with their family members as themselves roles speaking fake things into records, speaking fake things as judges, fake audio and video into records, and then other people pretend that's evidence. So they've been using time simultaneously too fast, too slow to get around forever nature at campuses, and including interbranch campuses, including fire campuses, including medical campuses. So follow mandated laws in time, please, Fox News. And it's also tied to where and how they keep measuring and maintaining people pretend, you know, the reason someone should be able to put their knee down if they want, if or where they should be able to not put it down. In other words, if they're putting their knee down just to put their knee down and say nothing, they're putting their knee down to have measured and maintained for their own. The breaching method measures and maintains where we were supposed to speak and need to speak, but we can't. We're not allowed. And this is not relevant to those theaters because they have Kids Act theaters too. In other words, they've been planting evidences at locations. They need to hide live progressions, pretend they had motivations other than they were. They're self-valuing means to have like the kids in the area take part with like Catch a Predator or things like that, because they have those kids and the adults involved with it and the predators in collusion other ways. This is all relevant to where and how they keep replacing what is actually recorded audio video. All these crime methods with the police where they have themselves calling in fake things. And the methods they use, coming to people's house and make confessions and statements, switching names, forging names, as their roles with the interbranch locations criminally involved with this. A former Mayor Gold, I non-verbally sought me out, had other people make their confessions for him. He also has roles with various natures of child abuses and of identity thefts and frauds against little kids through time, connected per his roles with uses of Millwoods Park and Weathersfield schools, as next to and as down the street from a fire department, Weathersfield Fire Department, along Griswold Street and along Route 3. They're involved with uses of corners where they don't understand the extent of it themselves because they've been used remotely since they were kids. Roles with identity theft, fraud, slanders, falsified police reports. Also in the form of that, wire crime, acts, methods, roles. Those illusions, forms of that. Then one of the things they do against American citizens on a mass scale is pretend they thought people were making conspiracy theories. So follow mandated law, because I asked to report sequence shifts and the forging of names and switching names interstates tied to this too now. And with the elections, these are election crimes. These aren't just fake news acts. These aren't separate subjects that we're going to separate or allow separated. We can't afford them separated any longer. What is actually simultaneously recorded? What is actually hyper simultaneously recorded? We're going to have the kids of America watch how and the adults watch how each age was failed. Each age of fact, human nature is a victim. Its reactions is recorded effectively being and having been employed. The self-defended, you can't defend yourself. If you try to use words right, make treatments of situations sequence right, ground locations really spoken properly, they're just going to attach you to fake words and worse. Let's all rehearse. Follow mandated law on time here for them. Give me a name. Weathersfield Interbranch.